Live, local, and letting you have your say. The Elias Macco Show. CJAD 800.
Welcome back to the Elias Macco Show. Let's talk about Bill 96. Let's get an update on the challenge to Bill 96. The Task Force on Linguistic Policy is holding a legal info session webinar tonight with updates to their lawsuit challenge that's been filed against Bill 96. The task force has stated that so far, lawsuits filed to challenge the bill only address a minute part of the law's egregious content. Their hope is to continue fighting the bill in court in order to highlight the parts of it which put people who don't speak French at a disadvantage, as well as highlight how the bill is dispiriting for many who believe in an open, tolerant, and bilingual society. That's their take. Let's go to Andrew Caddell. He's president of the Task Force on Linguistic Policy. El Presidente. Andrew, welcome to the show.
Great to talk to you, Elias. Good morning. I'm actually in the afternoon. I'm in Newcastle, England right now.
Oh, lucky you. A happy afternoon. Must be glorious there. So listen, this must be such a big battle for you, right? You're out there in England, but in your heart, you're still fighting Bill 96. So give us the update.
Well, first of all, I have to correct you. I'm sorry, but the event last night, the webinar we did was last night.
Oh, sorry
and
about
I
that.
actually was online at 1:00 in the morning in Scotland, in Edinburgh, giving an entry and introducing our lawyer, Michael Bergman, who's leading the fight against Bill 96, and we have plaintiffs and cases all prepared. But this was kind of like a telethon in the sense that we were both providing information to people, but also promoting the idea of donating, because we've raised several $1,000s, but we needed more. And we did all right. We had about 113 people registered last night. About 90 were actually active participants, for many of them for a long time. We ran out of time in terms of questions. People were still asking questions. We raised $5,000 in the night, but we need a lot more because obviously we're going to go to the Supreme Court with several cases, and we have several cases prepared. It's going to take time.
Legal challenges cost a lot of money. Andrew, let me ask you this. You say you got bombarded with questions last night. What were some of those key points? What were the points that were brought up to you that maybe you want to highlight this morning?
Well, first of all, you have to realize that there is going to be a restriction on who can receive government services post June 1st. Now, June 1st is really kind of the drop dead date. The bomb is going to explode on June 1st, and a lot of things that have been put off in terms of the application of Bill 96 will take place on June 1st. So, as of June 1st, only people who have been educated in French, in English at least, will have the capacity to be served by the Quebec government in English. Mm-hmm. That leaves about 500,000 people who may have immigrated from an Anglophone country post Bill 101, or who were educated in another language and then came to Canada, or didn't have the majority of their education in the English system in Quebec or in Canada. So that will be one thing. The second thing, and this obviously is a question of concern. Also, we have the issue of the Constitution being transformed, that Quebec will be declared a French-speaking nation. And then, of course, the really big problem for new immigrants is that they will no longer, after being in the country being in Quebec for 6 months, will no longer be able to receive services in English. Even if you're an immigrant from Ireland to the United States, after 6 months, you're expected to be able to speak French well enough that you're going to have to speak to Quebec public servants in French.
Andrew, the people that participated yesterday, of the people that you're hearing from, how many of them would you say come from outside of that, the historic Anglo community? Because if you're going to win this battle in the court situation, you're going to need Francophones on your side, right, who feel that they're being deprived of rights to going to English Egypts and that kind of thing. You're going to need that diaspora of Anglophones who don't qualify as historic Anglos. So when you look at the people that are showing up, the people that are behind this fight, how broad is that base?
Well, from the names that I saw, because of course it was 1:00 in the morning and I made a pretty quick exit, but I could see the names of the people that were registered, and they were from all across Quebec. But a lot of them, I would say maybe about a quarter, were people that were not what you'd consider historic Anglophones.
And Andrew, what are your next steps here?
Well, first of all, we've raised about $20,000, 25 maybe. We need to raise another $10,000 to be able to be on a good footing. We're going to reach out to people that have deep pockets and have the means to be able to give more than $50 or $100. And we've got allies in the community that are supporting us on this. That is really the main focus right now. I mean, I wrote an open letter to the Prime Minister a couple of weeks ago about Bill C-13. We have a submission to the Senate and House of Commons committees on official languages, which we hope to present to the Senate when Bill C-13 comes to the Senate, if it ever does, because they're very, very slow in doing their clause by clause. And who knows, there might be an election this year. That's what Tom O'Kerr is saying. Mm-hmm. So we're doing as much as we can. We have very much, I'm really regretting Mark Garneau's resignation, because he has been a stalwart in Ottawa, going against the grain of many of his colleagues on Bill C-13. And we've applauded him on that. But we're working as hard as we can to make sure that municipalities are providing the services that they should, that that people are able to speak out, and we're trying to collaborate well with our colleagues, sorry, in the QCGN and the Regional Development Network, in order to make sure that we all are rowing in the same direction.
Andrew, I have to ask you this, because obviously the notwithstanding clause was used preemptively for Bill 96, right? So I think what a lot of listeners would like to know, where is there a timeline where there could be a court ruling that can fight back against that, right? If the notwithstanding clause has been used, what is your legal tactic to get action so that we're not waiting 15 years before we have a resolution here?
Well, first of all, have to realize that many of the issues that are related don't really, the notwithstanding clause only applies to Section 2 and Section 7 to 15 of the Charter of Human Rights and Freedoms. Mm-hmm. So those issues, which are, they're quite significant, they're the freedom of association, freedom of movement, freedom of speech, those sorts of things, they're in there. But in the constitutions, for example, Section 133 deals with services of government in English and French. Well, under those sections, we can, appeal on the basis of the services are not being provided in English and French. There's Section 23, which deals with English education, which managed in the Bill 21 case to allow the English School Board to hire people who were of the Muslim faith. Of course, the problem was that then that case was appealed, and it won't be really decided until it's been settled probably by the Supreme Court. Mm-hmm. But the judge in the original case said, yes, the English Montreal School Board or the English school boards have a separate role and culture that is given to them by Section 23 of the Constitution, which is not affected by the notwithstanding clause. So there's lots of areas of the Constitution not affected by the notwithstanding clause. But that said, it's quite possible there may be a ruling soon among the sort of the boutique issues that are being pleaded against Bill 96, one of which deals with the role of the preemptive use of the notwithstanding clause.
Andrew, we have to leave it there. Thanks for the update.
That's a lot of legalese, but I hope it's understandable.
What's that? Sorry?
That's a lot of legalese, but I hope it's understandable.
No, it is. And it's good to see that hopefully we'll get some news sooner than later, even on those boutique issues. Andrew, thanks so much for joining us.
Always a pleasure.
Okay, be well. That's Andrew Caddell, president of the Task Force on Linguistic Policy.